In the 8th episode, Ben and Anisha's relationship is grossing Davy out, but Davy's being a bigger person and not mentioning it. Even when Anisha comes up to her and says, "You sure it's okay?" Davy tells her yes, but she's frustrated as hell. She's sick of watching them make out in public. And Davy has to see it all the time because her locker is right next to Ben's. They do take a break from making out, though, because Fabiola and Eve come over, and Eleanor and Malcolm come over. And Eleanor asks them all if they're cool with sharing a limo to the school dance. It would be her and Malcolm, Fabiola and Eve, Ben and Anisha, and then whoever Davy gets, if she gets a date at all. But Malcolm ends up yelling at Eleanor because he has kind of PTSD from limos. After all, his Disney Channel show, he played a boy who drove a magical limo. So he wants no parts of a limo. Party buses are fine, but he can't believe that Eleanor didn't understand this about him. Eleanor apologizes, but it's so uncomfortable that when Malcolm leaves for class, Fabiola and Davy pull her aside and tell her, "We don't like the way he just talked to you." But Eleanor says, "Don't worry about that. That's just how we talk." The group then split up and go their separate ways, with Eve and Fabiola going to the common area where Eve's judgmental lesbian friend has their whole schedule planned out on where they're going to go in order to win Cricket Queen and Queen. She's basically become their campaign manager. The problem is, her schedule doesn't really fit with what Fabiola's schedule is. She wants Fabiola to skip robotics club, but Fabiola is the president of the robotics team. She can't skip it. It's clear that Eve's friend doesn't understand the importance of being on a team, but Eve helps them come to an agreement that for that week alone, Fabiola will skip 2 of the practices, but from here on out, the schedule will be scheduled around robotics. Fabiola then heads to class where she meets up with Davy, and Davy has done a really good job of fixing her relationship between Anisha and Ben, but she completely forgot about the broken relationship between her and Paxton. She walks up to him and apologizes for how she acted the last time, chalking it up to the fact that she was just suspended. And Paxton accepts her apology, but says, "You were right. If I want to be a better student, it's on me." The class just read The Great Gatsby, and Mr. K comes in and tells them that their new assignment is going to be a mock trial based on The Great Gatsby, but Daisy Buchanan is going to be put on trial for murder. He's already taken the liberty of putting them into characters. And the defense is going to be Davy, Ben, and Anisha, with the prosecution being Paxton, Fabiola, and Malcolm. So after class, both the prosecution and the defense start planning for their cases. But as Davy sits down to plan, she can't even focus because Ben and Anisha are all over each other. When she finally gets them to talk about the actual assignment, she's noticed that Mr. K never assigned somebody to play Daisy Buchanan. Davy wants to play a lawyer, and it fits. She's on the debate team, she did mock trial, but Anisha also wants to play a lawyer. And Ben sides with Anisha. It's 2 against 1. Davy ends up having to be Daisy Buchanan. She's so frustrated that she goes in the kitchen to just get a break from them. And Kamala can tell that these two are driving Davy nuts. So Kamala, being a good cousin, decides to help her out and send their Indian grandmother into the room. Knowing that Anisha will be respectful, Davy's grandmother gets in between the two, and that way the defense can actually go to work. Over with the prosecution, they meet up at Paxton's house. And Paxton is trying to be a better student. He wants to help with this thing. Fabiola obviously is a good student, but Malcolm has zero interest in doing anything. As Paxton is writing on the board some of the points that they can make for their case, Malcolm gets up to go to the bathroom, but when he does, his phone starts blowing up. And Fabiola reads some of those texts, and the texts are from a girl named Isabella that says, "Talk tonight, babe? Thanks for the pics, you're so cute. I love it when you're filthy." And Fabiola shows the text messages to Paxton and says, "Is there any way this is plutonic?" And Paxton says, "No, not at all." So Fabiola is pretty convinced that Malcolm is cheating on her friend. The next day, when they get to school, Fabiola shows Davy the text messages, and Davy can't believe that this guy is two-timing their friend. They both figure they have to find a way to tell her, but they both also have class. And Davy cannot do this anymore. She's sick of being in this defense. She goes to Mr. K and begs for a switch, but Mr. K tells her, "No, I'm not switching you. I know you have a past with Ben, but what you need to do is focus on everything that annoys you about him. That'll help you get through this." Right before Davy leaves, though, Mr. K tells her, "Hey, tell your cousin I said hi." So Davy goes to meet with her partners, and this trick works. She starts focusing on every little thing that Ben Gross did that annoyed the hell out of her. She's no longer focusing on the relationship. She's actually relieved that she's not dating him. She heads home that day in a great mood, but at dinner, her grandmother's in a bad mood because Davy's mom is not joining them for dinner, and her grandmother takes that as an insult. Davy's mom says that she has some plans that night to go see Frost Nixon, but her grandmother guilts her into staying for a little bit, and they start talking about their days. Davy tells the table that she had a great day, but then tells Kamala, "By the way, Mr. K said hi." And Kamala starts to blush, not knowing what to say, and just tells Davy, "Tell him I said hi back." The next day when Davy gets to school, her and Fabiola have to sit Eleanor down and give her the bad news. that she's being cheated on. At first, Eleanor thinks that maybe it's not what it looks like, but they're pretty convincing text messages, and Eleanor is pretty heartbroken. After school, she once again has to meet with her partners to go over the prosecution, but in the door walks Ben, and Ben only, and that's because Anissa has a soccer game somewhere else. Ben asks Davy if this is weird, being on a team with Anissa and him dating each other. But she says no, she's actually happy for them, and that he deserves her. The next day is the big court date. First person to speak is Paxton with the prosecution, and he doesn't really do a good job. Ben gets up there for the defense and makes him look like an idiot. They start calling witnesses, and then finally it's the closing arguments. When it comes to closing arguments, the first one to speak is Anissa, and she's got cue cards, but they're all out of order, and she bombs. Fabiola gets up there for the prosecution and kills it. I mean, she's getting standing ovations from people. And while her defense would never hold up in a court of law, it holds up in the court of the class, and Mr. K rules for the prosecution. And Ben cannot believe he just lost something academic. It's pretty clear that he is pissed off that Anissa bombed it. But Davy couldn't really care less. She runs up to Fabiola afterwards and is telling her what a great job she did. But then all of a sudden, Malcolm and Eleanor storm up to clear the air. Eleanor is pissed off, feeling like her friend just tried to break up her relationship over text messages that weren't between Malcolm and another girl. They were between Malcolm and his agent. Davy and Fabiola say, we're sorry, but we were just trying to be good friends. And Malcolm says, is that what you're telling yourself? Because all I see is immature children who can't be happy for their friend. He then turns to Eleanor and says, it's time to get you some new friends. And Fabiola and Davy obviously take this as a slight. Davy tells Eleanor he might not be cheating, but he's still a major douchebag. But in a shocking turn of events, Eleanor defends Malcolm, saying that Fabiola and Davy are toxic. Eleanor then really hits the core, turning to Fabiola and saying, I'm not taking relationship advice from you. You're just becoming Eve. And then turning to Davy and telling her, and I'm certainly not taking relationship advice from you. You had 2 boyfriends, but that didn't count. You've never been in a real relationship. Just because your personal life is a flaming toilet doesn't mean you have to take a flaming dump all over mine. Getting yelled at like that by her friend hurts Davy, to the point where when she's walking home, she's actually crying, and Paxton ends up driving by and noticing her and picking her up. She tells Paxton about the fight, and then the conversation gets into Paxton because he feels like he really did try with this thing, and maybe it's just that he's dumb. But Davy tells him, you're not dumb. You want my take? You didn't actually try. You did the work, but you didn't give the effort. Davy then asks Paxton to pull over right before their house because she doesn't want her mom freaking out that Paxton drove her home. But they park behind a Maybach, and then Davy notices that in that Maybach is her mom and another guy. And then finally there's Fabiola. Well, after the fight, she had robotics team. But Eve's judgmental lesbian friend came up and said, no, you're not going to that. Shira's throwing a hot tub party at her house, and that's the party we need to be at. While Fabiola doesn't want to bail on her team, she does it anyway. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this sucked. Make sure to be nice in the comment section. If you don't see the next video up in the end screen there, I'll get it up in a few days, not to worry. And I have merchandise, so go buy a mug or something. It's never too early to think about Christmas gifts, folks. Once again, thank you for checking out this recap.